and I'm sure there's a lot of, like you touched on, pressing questions about the area specifically, so I'd love to take those down afterwards and get your emails or contacts and see how many of those questions I could fulfill as well. But also during the presentation and after, I'm happy to answer beetle-related questions or anything to do with that. So, Polyphagous shot-hole borer, also known as PSHB. So I'd also like to start with the acknowledgement of country. So as the ladies put it before, it is a huge aspect of their culture, preserving country, and what we've found is it has affected a lot of culturally significant trees. So what we want to do is work as close as possible to the traditional owners. So it's very important, this relationship for us at DPIRD. So I'd like to acknowledge the Wajak people of the Noongar Nation and their elders past, present and emerging. This is an art piece done by Wildflower. She's an artist from up in the Pilbara and learned under her father her painting technique, and it's kangaroos going to the waterhole. So yeah, as I said, Polyphagous shot-hole borer. It's got a lot of different names. So Polyphagous shot-hole borer, PSHB, Wildflower fornicatus, but it's also an ambrosia beetle. So the Wildflower relates to the region of the world it's found in, which is like a Southeast Asian region, around the Vietnam, Indonesia, that sort of area, but our bug specifically came from Vietnam. So the ambrosia beetle part, so that means that it's a wood-boring beetle. So it has mycangia, which is mouth sacs, but it doesn't have to be on the mouth, but our beetle specifically does. And it transports a fungus into the tree via these mycangia, and it's taken it all the way from Vietnam in these little mouth sacs. So it's a pretty effective way of carrying this fungus. And what it does is cultivates the fungus in the tree. It doesn't actually eat the tree, so it bores into the tree and pushes the wood out behind it. But what it does is cultivates this fungus using the tree's nutrients, and once it establishes in the tree, it cuts off the tree's vascular system, which causes all the dieback and damage, especially if it gets into the trunk. So this is a super close up photo, because in real life they're about that big, the size of a sesame seed. So yeah, in real life 2 millimeters is the female and around 1.6 the male. So there's a couple differences between the males and females. So the females have wings and can fly and are slightly larger and darker in appearance, whereas the males are slightly lighter brown and smaller. So the males will spend their entire life in the same tree, and the females are the ones that go across and spread new colonies. So potentially in Perth, our colony started, our infestation started from one beetle because of, sorry, I'll get to a couple of facts after this, but this is just an example of it, the female flying. There you go. Yeah, so it could potentially be just one beetle that this whole thing started from because of their mating system, which is a haploid-diploid system. So essentially, this is probably the most interesting and to humans gross part of the beetle. So she can actually produce as many offspring as she needs that are male, so usually about 50 in a brood, and then she'll mate with her offspring, and that will create the females of the population. So she needs that sexual reproduction to create the females, but without it, she can create a whole new colony. So once they create the females, then you have another brood of 50, and then you have 50 females and 50 males, and then you can see if each one of those mating pairs can create 50, you can see how the population can explode quite fast. Especially, they come to full maturation within about 30 to 40 days. So from an egg, so it can happen very fast, especially because the climate they like is around 24 degrees, and Perth doesn't really stray too far from that, because they come from Vietnam, that humid, warm type area, they just thrive in Perth. We don't get too close to zero for long periods. It usually bumps back up. Even the last couple of weeks, you can see it goes up to 38 and then it comes down for a couple of days and then they just start reproducing again. So this is a map of their spread and where they originated from. So, oh wait, I think I've got a, do I have a
should be a pointer on there.
pointer?
I don't think they work on screen.
Oh, it doesn't work? Okay. So, yeah, so it originated here in Vietnam and it's spread to Israel, Southern California, Hawaii, Argentina, South Africa and Australia. Just the Perth metro area of Australia. Fortunately, unfortunately, depending how you look at it, I guess. But we know it came specifically from Vietnam because it has the exact same genetic and fungus type. So it has a Fusarium F18 type and a specific genetic makeup, which is slightly, like very slightly different to all the other locations. So we know it came directly from Vietnam and not via Southern California. But we do liaise with especially Southern California and South Africa because they've had infestations for a longer period. We can gain like valuable knowledge from them. They did discover it a lot further into the infestation. That's why we're a little bit more hopeful of eradication, whereas I think they were about 10 years down the line and then they found their infestation. So we're kind of on a good foot with it, I think. So detection of polyphagous shot hole borer. So that's for Perth. It was first discovered on the 6th of August 2021 in 2 box elder maples in southeast Fremantle. So box elder maple is its favourite type of tree. It's an amplifier host, we call it. So our host is what we call trees that are able to be infested. But box elder maple is up the top, and once it gets in there, the population is almost definitely going to just balloon from there. And so it was in 2 30-year-old box elder maple trees, first detected by My Pest Guide submission, which is our preferred type of reporting method. And I've got some resources I can give out to anyone who's interested later. It really helps us. So our working theory is that it came through the South Fremantle, the Fremantle docks on some untreated or unseasoned wood, and it's just slipped through. Australia does have really great quarantining processes, but unfortunately it's not 100%. And like I said, it could have been one beetle, but something slipped through. So the potential impacts. So there's urban and amenity trees, the loss of canopy cover. So that's things like your home, your front yard, your backyard, your streets. That can really change the feeling, the temperature of an area, and just your life. Your life. You know, I think everybody here loves trees and plants. So that's a huge aspect of it. That's one of our 4 aspects. Environmental impacts, as I said, you take out a whole bunch of trees, it's going to raise the temperature of an area, and loss of habitat for local flora and fauna, because trees, you know, they survive in a coexistence. They don't survive alone. It's an ecosystem here, and also our native animals. That's their food source. That's where they're living. A lot of them. Agricultural crops. Fortunately, there hasn't been anything discovered in any of our agricultural crops, so that's a positive. But that's something we don't want it to affect, because there are certain trees that do have agricultural crops here in Perth that, if it got into it, could affect.
You haven't seen them in fruit trees?
We have seen them in fruit trees, but like suburban, so like not in
orchards
or anything like that. And full impact will not be known for some time. So like I said, it was 2021, the first detection. So if this thing does get out of hand, which hopefully it won't, we don't know what the impact could be. Because we are slightly different, our beetle type is slightly different, and our climate is slightly different to the other areas like Southern California and South Africa, so we don't actually know how it will affect Perth. So this is just a before and after. So this is an example of monoculture planting. So I believe they're all box elder maples. I might be wrong. I feel like a few people here will probably be able to pick me out if I am, but I believe they are. So this is a street. It's gotten into one tree and then it's spread, and this is the result.
Sad.
And that's in Perth. So it's quite drastic. And as you can see, just the shade cover, everything, it changes it quite drastically.
It's a nice big tree out the back though.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Everyone can huddle underneath. So this is an example of Southern California in 2016. We have all this beautiful lush garden here, and then 2017, you see all these white dots here. They're actually stumps of trees that have been removed because of PSHB. It spread quite rapidly in this park. Over 500 infested trees there. So this is a potential suitability for climate. So there are a lot of different factors that come into it when PSHB's suitability of where it's going to affect comes into play. So, but this is just climate. So as we can see, the red zone, so that's the very suitable climate here in Perth. But you can see it goes the whole way around Australia pretty much, popping up in lots of different pockets, and then the orange pretty much circumferences Australia. So if it does go off that one factor, we could be in a lot of trouble if it does escape our quarantine zone. So we work off, at the moment, a susceptibility host list, so it's free to the public, everybody can access it. I can give out some more resources as well. The best one being on this flyer, which is up the back, agric.wa.gov.au/Bora. There's enough for everybody. Pretty much all the information and probably some more stuff is on there. If you're wanting to brush up on anything or tell anyone or spread some information. But this just tells of the 200 plus trees that are susceptible to being infected by the PSHB in Perth, with the susceptibility rate ranging from extreme to negligible, the box elder maple being right up there with a few others. But globally there's over 500. But yeah, in Perth alone, there's over 200 with 50 plus native species that can be infested. So this is an example of a couple top hosts. So top trees that can be susceptible to infestation. So we've got the box elder maple, as I said, and then we have the robinia and the coral tree. These are all amplifiers. They're going to create a bigger population if it gets into these trees. There's also a couple on here that usually take some people by surprise. For example, the sea hibiscus. It's not known to have super large woody bits on it, but all they need is 2.5 centimeters of wood or more, and they can infest a tree. And then there's a few others here. So the mirror bush, even bushes, black mulberry, avocado, the white mulberry. So there's a few can get into. Moreton Bay fig, that's a very very sensitive one here in Perth, especially after the Mounts Bay Road and Hyde Park has been treated. So now I'll talk a little bit about signs and symptoms and how you can spot it and how you can report it. So shot holes is the main one. I can pass it around actually. I'll give you whoever wants to start there. Yeah, no worries. So on the outside, the very outside is what we're looking at here. So this is what where they enter the tree. So I'll give you that, and you can just snake it around. So they're exactly 1 millimeter across and perfectly circular. So usually a little bit dark as well, or black, due to the staining from the fungus that's grown inside it. this is another resource I can make available to everybody. It's up the back. So we just, when you're reporting it, it helps us like a whole bunch if there's something to scale in the picture, because we get a lot of reports that are maybe like that big and people are like, oh, I think we got a PSHB, and it's like definitely not it, but there's also a website on there, and the reporting method will also help you out with different infestations as well. So it doesn't matter if you do have a different infestation, we will help you out with that as well. But that is one of the methods we use for creating a care plan for a tree. Galleries, so there should be a few on those pieces going around. So that's the inside of the tree. So that's where they've cut off the vascular system and created these black galleries, or sometimes white if there's still fungus in them. So that's where they've cultivated their fungus and eaten through and stained it. Yeah.
Do they only attack live wood?
Yeah. It might be in a recently fallen tree, but it's probably on the
Like a
females are
wood
probably
stack, they wouldn't go into a wood stack.
I don't think so, but also you do have to be careful when transporting.
Yeah, you know, I know you don't transport them.
Yeah. But they do need that live sort of nutrient flow to survive and cultivate their fungus, which is what they're concerned about. But yeah, I guess it's just it could be in something that's recently fallen, I guess. Yeah.
I'm just thinking about wood stacks for wood fires. If you've got a wood stack, would they be getting infesting in those?
If it's bought wood, or if you've chopped it down yourself, then it would just be depending on when it's fallen. I don't think it would go into it unless there was some sort of nutrient flow. There's an example I'll show you. Sometimes, like if a piece of wood is in a bucket of water, there can be still, but yeah, if you're just
stacked wood.
So dieback. So this one really helps us when I was working in the field. So if you've got 200 trees to assess and you're like, where do I start? Sometimes you can see a tree that's not looking the best from afar. So it's just the falling of leaves, the darkening of limbs, or just you can tell the nutrients has been sucked from the limb. So that's just the nutrient supply's been cut off, and there's symptoms of it. Frass, so also known as wood noodles in our department. So that's just the sawdust that's burrowed in and compressed and pushed out behind it, and it pops out as this little wood noodle. It usually means it's a recent infestation, because small changes in weather can knock it off the tree, like a bit of rain or a large gust of wind or something like that. But sometimes in the field you'll get lucky, and maybe there'll be a spider web or something that will hold it to the tree a bit longer, and then you can get lucky and find an infestation. Staining and lesions. So this is the tree's natural defense to just pushing out any sort of infestation or stress. Gumming, very similar process. It will try to bind up whatever's trying to infiltrate past the bark layer. You get this in the Moreton Bay figs a lot. In the field, we'd walk past and accidentally hit it with the hammer, and then just spurt out with this white gum stuff. So that's essentially what's happened. It's under some stress, and it's just its defense mechanism and seals up the tree. So what is DPIRD doing? So we're working with a nationally coordinated response plan, and it's the largest biosecurity response in WA history. So we've all agreed within this response that eradication is technically still feasible and our best option. So from a detection, it gets passed down through a lot of different layers, but this is kind of where a lot of the stuff I guess I'm interested in, and probably you guys are more interested in, happens. So the Consultative Committee on Emergency Plant Pests works with the Scientific Advisory Panel, and they pass on their recommendations to the National Management Group, which comes up with a plan to combat this pest, and they will pass it on to my team, which is DPIRD, or whatever incident response they choose, but in this case it has been DPIRD. and we'll carry out their plans and report our findings back to the CCEPP, and it'll kind of go like that, around and around, and we're constantly sharing information, tweaking by the national management group until we've found the best solution and the best way to combat it, until hopefully it's eradicated. So the quarantine area requirements. There's a zone A and B. I think this one shows it a little bit better, I feel. So the red zone is zone A and blue zone B. Wood, unseasoned or untreated wood can't leave zone A going out to zone B unless it's been chipped to 2.5 centimetres or less, and living plants unless it's smaller than 2 centimetres, because that's when it can infest the wood. And we make sure all machinery is wiped down and cleaned thoroughly and disinfected before, once it's been used on plant materials or green materials in those areas and it's leaving.
So you're talking about the trunk being 2 centimetres, not it being 2 centimetres high?
Oh yeah,
For a
sorry,
plant.
not 2 centimetres high, yeah, and just any wood on there,
Mulch.
yeah.
Can I just make a point? My local tree person said to me, if their mulch is less than 2 centimetres, they
Yep.
can move the mulch.
Yep, that would be true, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so if it's chipped to 2.5 centimetres or less, then it's
Okay.
no worries. It's got a 99.9% kill rate for the PSHB if it has been chipped that small. Due to the vibrations, actually, not even the cutting, it's just the vibrations that kills it. Yeah. And
The tube stock's fine then. The tube
Yeah.
stock usually is
yeah,
tiny.
yeah, definitely.
Draw.
Zone B, so pretty much exactly the same as Zone A, except it can't go into the outer regions of Australia. So it can go into Zone A, but just not that way. So the way I like to explain it is we want everything moving in towards where it was first infested, and not out towards the rest of Australia. So that helps me think about it. Yes, I have a resource here as well available to everybody. So there are some exemptions we hand out. So if you buy a plant in zone A and you want to gift it to someone and it's over 2.5 centimetres, you can reach out to this number or this email, which everyone can grab, and they can send someone out and assess it. Even if you're just wanting to move the plant around or different parts of the quarantine, they can.
So if you're moving house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we can send someone out to give you an exemption. So this is a distribution chart of all the infected premises around the Perth metro area. Yeah, this is the good one for these sort of events, because this one isn't released like public information just all the time. So this is great. You guys can come in and see this. So as you can see, it follows the Swan River a lot. I think it's because of that humid, sort of that water nutrient supply, and yeah, it does seem to like the waterways, and maybe it mimics a little bit like Vietnam sort of weather. As you can see, there hasn't been too many infestations outside of quarantine zone A, which is a positive, and none outside the quarantine zone B, so that's a big win for us. So some more of what DPIRD is doing. So our surveillance, so my previous role, so going out and checking people's front yards, backyards, streets, mapping the whole of Perth Metro of where the box elder maples or the top posts are, and we'll regularly check up on those. Trapping, you might have seen some traps about this high with a green cage on top, bamboo sticks. So that's us just trying to figure out how many PSHB are in that area. So there's a lure on top that mimics the box elder maple and the chemical composition, and beetle goes straight to it, and we can kind of figure out how many are in the area.
How often are those traps checked?
They're on a roster, so
Okay.
I believe it's every 2 weeks. I could be wrong on that. I could, if you want me to check and get back to you. But it is on a rotation and it's in like a grid pattern, so we're very aware, and they also have to be changed. So because the lure does get old after a while, so we're regularly updating them traps.
So if they land on the lure, does that kill them, or are they still okay to move on somewhere else?
No, so they'll stick and stay. Like they can't, they're not strong enough to leave. So we'll kill them, I guess. Yeah. And public information. So that's kind of like my job and our media team's job. So just trying to spread the word about PSHB so we can all get onto it as a big team in Perth. I come out and talk to groups such as SELF or local governments. We did, I don't know if you would have seen in the Perth tunnel, the Perth train station tunnel, we just lined that with a huge big animation of PSHB, so that was kind of a cool thing for us. I used to catch the train to Perth, the Perth station a lot, and so I was like, oh, it's my job, but I didn't have any part in it, but I still felt, kind of good. So that's an example of the sticky trap. So they'll get caught in that, and they won't be able to leave.
You can see them on Bibra Drive. You're leaving that way at night. Well, you probably won't be able to see them in the night. They're there.
Trap logs is an interesting one. I think I touched on it when we were talking about the firewood. But so we get a bit of box elder maple fresh wood and put it in these water buckets, and that tends to draw the PSHB away from other hosts in the area. So we've had a little bit of a success with that, but then it becomes a bit of a logistical problem because we don't have a supply of box elder maple just on hand constantly, and it becomes like a big logistics issue. So treatment, the only effective treatment is that chipping to the 2.5 centimetres or less, and it has the 99.9% kill rate. We also prune or fully remove the tree, but we will opt for pruning where we can. And treatment is assessed on a case-by-case basis. So if it's just in the outer limb of a tree, we're probably not going to chop down the whole thing, but if it's in the trunk and it's a risk to the public and it's causing dieback and dropping of limbs, then we're probably going to look into taking the whole tree out.
So is that private and public, or just public?
Both, yeah. So if you do suspect it in any of your trees as well, it's completely on us. Like, there's no charge for use. So we can come and we'll, from assessment to removal, that's all covered by us and nothing at all by you guys. Chemical treatment. So as it says, there's been extensive research globally for chemical treatment, but nothing has been found very viable. There's been over 40 chemical trials. All of it seems to come back to it cutting the vascular system off. So if you've got a base of you've got a tree down at infestation here, and you inject it into the vascular system, it can't penetrate the treatment. So that's a big problem for us. There has been a little bit of success with reinfestation, so the pruning of a limb and then painting on a chemical treatment has dropped the reinfestation rate by 30%, which has been a bit of a win for us. And these are just some of our stats from DPIRD. So we've inspected over 2.5 million trees, and I think that number is a little bit old. I believe it's over 3,000 now, active traps in the quarantine area, and there's a few on the outside, so we're making sure that it hasn't escaped as well. And as you can see, we've had 4,300 trees removed and 1,080 pruned, so we do opt for pruning when we can. I think everybody at DPIRD is nature lovers. I hope. I definitely am, and we do want to protect Australia, but I guess it can be take out one tree and save a whole garden. So this is just a little video crawling around. A lot of the times you won't see an actual PSHB, you'll see the signs and symptoms, so the dieback, because they're so small and they do like to live in the tree. They're animal of convenience. So what can you do? Visit the website, which I'll give you pamphlets for, and just spread the word as much as you can and keep an eye out. That just helps us, and report as much as you can. Yeah, share it to your friends, and yeah, report to the My Pest Guide app. And I think that's everything. So yeah, if there's any questions, we'd be happy to try and answer them.
Can we get traps ourselves?
I'm not sure where you buy the lure, but if you could get your hands on it legally, I'm sure
Yeah.
you could do it yourself.
No pinching the one.
Yeah, legally is
Yeah,
there.
pinch
Yeah, but we don't give them out to people. Yeah,
Right.
but we might ask, can we put it near your
Yeah.
property or something? But
Because I've got a lot of plane trees.
yeah, okay,
I
yeah,
just had a massive Moreton Bay fig taken out, 25 metre.
okay, yeah, yeah.
Do they hit
That's-
liquid ambers?
Pardon?
Liquid amber trees.
I have heard that mentioned. It should be, if it is, it will be on the
Yeah,
susceptibility
it does.
list, but
Yeah.
I feel like I have
Yeah,
heard it
it's on the
mentioned.
list.
I've heard them in other countries, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
okay.
That's on the list.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and they should be sort of, they should be monitoring the area if they've just taken out a Moreton Bay fig around your area. So for at least